Hey guys, so today I have a little bit of an interesting topic that I want to talk about that got brought up through me browsing Reddit and seeing this thread. You can see it on the screen right now. But before we kind of head into this thread and talk a little bit more, I just wanted to put a disclaimer that I personally don't think anybody should ever get flamed, even if they're sucking complete donkey dick. I think being toxic and flaming people just won't make them play better. In fact, most of the time just makes them play worse. So it's actually just a lose-lose situation, right? You make that person feel shitty and your raid probably goes even worse than before. So just keep to yourself. But yeah, I saw this thread on Reddit and it really got me thinking about Lost Ark, the community, toxicity, and everything, right? It's titled The Lost Ark Community is Dog Shit and Getting Worse. And basically, what the OP is saying is like, he sees a lot of people, including himself, just get flamed for quote unquote the dumbest shit, or other people get upset over nothing and getting worse, right? I personally think that the Lost Ark community isn't worse than other communities, but I'll go a little bit into that later. But the gist of this thread is that, I'll go over quickly. He joined a Brel Gate 1 to 3 lobby, and he had a bunch of people, 1620s apparently, who knew each other. He played Gunlancer, and in Gate 1, they cleared it easily, but he got called bad because he taunted it the wrong way as a Gunlancer and messed up some people's back attacks. He also said that he did some raids on an alt afterwards, and it was doing Kaya Gate 1. In that situation, one of the other DPS died, and he and the other party members, finished the gate, but he gets called bad, and somebody asks him if he knows what Lost Ark Nexus is. And then later on in Gate 2, his paladin complains about him not cleansing or shielding or something, but they still one-shot the gate, and he assumes that they're using meter and are unhappy with his damage, which I personally don't think is like a valid claim in this case, because clearly he's talking about his paladin complaining about him not cleansing or shielding. But why is he bringing up meter? But we'll move on. Then he goes and talks about how he wanted to do clown in gate 3, but they didn't clear it because somebody didn't go into Mario 4 because they were trying to skip and they didn't have damage. Nobody flamed him, but this is kind of like another example they want to provide about toxicity. So looking at this, there's a couple things that I'm like, okay, is he really speaking the whole truth, right? Because anytime these things happen, a lot of people kind of talk about the bad stuff that happens to them, but never really talks about the whole experience, or you know, purposefully leaves out certain information, right? So I don't know. In my opinion, right, and in my experience, I've played Lost Ark since the beginning of time, right? Since the beginning of the game's release in the West, and even before that. In my experience, I've rarely ever seen anybody get flamed, or myself, I've barely ever been flamed myself. Of course, I've seen it, right? There's some cases, but in general, I can count on one hand how many times I got flamed myself, or saw other people just get flamed randomly. The only time I really get see people get flamed is really when shit hits the bed. If they really shit the bed, if they really mess up on something crazy, consistently, that's when people start flaming. If somebody messes up a mechanic or something once or maybe even twice, nobody really complains. They're just like, okay, let's just go on. But only in those cases where somebody is really messing up badly, that's when I see the flaming start. Now, he talks a little bit also about how he's not the youngest and he's like a boomer and he doesn't have the reaction times. But, I mean, I'm not the youngest either. I'm goddamn 30. At 30 going on to 31 this next year. Of course, maybe he's in his 40s or something like that. It's a little bit different, but still, I'm not the youngest either. And I don't think you can really blame that as a reason why, you get flamed. But what I can say is for me, in my experience, I don't really see people getting flamed unless they're really messing up. So, as Asmongold says, right, get 1 point on on a graph, right? That's just a point. But for this person, it's not just 1 point. They're getting flamed multiple times on the same day on different characters. So perhaps this person was not playing to their best, right? But again, I don't, even if the person's playing bad, right? I don't think that you should flame them for the reasons I mentioned before. I don't think it's a good thing. But this leads me on to the topic of more talking about Lost Ark and the community in general and toxicity. I'd say again, in general, I don't see people being like blatantly toxic for no reason. There's usually a reason why. And rather than that, I think gatekeeping is more of an issue than being toxic in Lost Ark. But, what I can say is that people all often like blame like DPS meters for the reason why some people are toxic, and even Smilegate, right? They're like, we don't put meters in the game because we don't think this is going to be toxic for people, and people are just going to flame other people. But in general, for me, like not using DPS meter at all, right? When I'm doing a raid, just by looking at somebody's movements and what they're doing, I can tell who's not carrying their weight. Like just by looking up. And then afterwards, right, the raid's over and whatever, I ask my friends who are, using the meter, and I'm like, hey, yo, how is this guy doing? And they're like, oh, yeah, he was at the bottom of the list. It's like, for the most part, you can really tell who's doing bad and who's doing well, even without meter. So I think people are just going to flame you regardless if they're going to flame you, right? Regardless if they have meter, regardless if, whatever, they're probably just going to flame you if they were going to, that type of person anyways. So there's that. But also, I don't think that Lost Ark players are toxic, like more toxic than other games. I think people are just generally toxic online, unfortunately. But it's just kind of the way that Lost Ark is, designed makes the toxicity come out of people. Of course, you can say like it's because the raids are hard, it's the raids are, punishing, you got a lot of different raids to do, which is part of it, but I don't think it's like the part that you're thinking about. I don't think it's because we have a lot of homework that people are toxic. I think that's why people gatekeep, but I don't think that's why people are toxic. I think the number of raids that we do with other people, like the sheer number, right? Let's say you have a roster of 6, you have 3 gold earners, earning raids each week for each character, right? That's a total of 18 minimum raids. That sheer number of party play with other people makes it so that you just run into these situations a lot more often than in other games. Not many other games you're raiding with a full party of, for the most part, 8, right? 18 different times a week. Like, that just doesn't happen in other MMOs. And because of that, you're interacting with more people, more different people. And on top of that, I'd say that Lost Ark is a bit of a competitive game. Like, even though you're all working on a team, for the most part, when I'm doing a raid, right, I'm like, oh, let me beat this guy in DPS. I'm going to beat this guy. Oh, dang, they beat me. And then in that case, like, you kind of like point fingers like, oh, this person made me do less damage because they did X, Y, or Z. Like, that type of like competitive mentality, the me versus them mentality, is really one of the main reasons why I think there is this, toxicity or like perceived toxicity in the community. If you think about it, right? In a League or Dota match, like those MOBAs are like known as like some of the most toxic games, right? And that's because it is kind of like a raid scenario in Lost Ark. Every game you're playing with other people. And also, everybody has their own role that they need to play, but you're kind of relying on each other a little bit here and there to like push the progress forward and win the game, right? And then when somebody's not doing their job well, then you start flaming them. So there's a lot of like dependency on like each other and like a little bit of like a competition there too that causes people to just get pissed off at people and like complain about people and complain about things. And that's the case with Lost Ark as well. There's just like a little bit of dependency on one another, and there's a lot of competition between one another. And honestly don't know how we change that in the game. Like, how do we change that mindset? Because, like, I think that the fundamental design of Lost Ark is kind of what causes this. I think perhaps, like, getting rid of the MVP screen and the damage, like, of course, the meter, right? Those two combined, like, when I say meter, I mentioned earlier, like, I don't think it's because of the meter, but, like, if we were to take away both of those, right? The MVP screen and the meter, I think that it could potentially help out, but again, I don't think it will completely, because you can really tell when somebody's like messing up, right? But if at the end of the day you can't tell what anybody's performance is, like truly, without the MVP screen and without the meter, I think that it might be a little bit better. But at that point, what would we be kind of playing for, right? We're doing the same raids every week. We're doing this homework. And for me, the exciting part and the part that I look forward to doing every week in doing these raids is like, how am I going to perform? Am I going to perform better than last week? I got this upgrade this week. You know, can I beat this person? Can I not beat this person? Where will I be on this list? Like on the MVP screen? Like that's what I look for in my homework runs, right? If I didn't have that, then what would I be working for? Like these raids will be so boring. So like I think again, the fundamental design of Lost Ark breeds toxicity, breeds gatekeeping, and just people in general are just toxic, right? It's not the Lost Ark community. It's just because people in general are toxic, and we have to play with people more in this game than others. So yeah, there wasn't really like much of a point to this video or like any like I guess overall bigger message or like how can we fix this problem. It was just more of like a discussion in my like I always wanted to talk about it because this Reddit thread got me thinking. But yeah, let me know down in the comment section down below, like, what do you think about this issue? Do you think I'm correct in saying, like, it's not really the community, it's just, like, people in general are toxic? Do you think there's, like, a way we can solve this? Like, what do you guys think about this whole topic? I want to know. Let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, hit that like button, hit the sub button, ring the bell for notifications, and also, I stream on Twitch every night starting at 10 p.m. PST. I'm also multi-streaming on YouTube these days, so you can join me on either my YouTube or on Twitch, twitch.tv/misosoup. And yeah, if I don't see you there, I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.